today I'm going to be sharing with you my spring TBR. As you may know, if you've been here for a while, I like to do seasonal TBRs rather than doing monthly ones because I find that it gives me a little bit more freedom because I am a mood reader. It gives me a bit more freedom to pick up the books that I feel like reading. I tend to read between 4 and 5 books a month, and I set myself 12 every season, so it does give me a little bit of room to play as well. So let's jump straight into the books that I hope to read this spring. As I said, there are 12 books, so in order for this video not to go on and on and on, I will only briefly summarise what each book is about. There will also be 3 Bookish Mamas choices. If you don't know, Bookish Mamas is a book club that I run with 2 other bloggers. I will leave the link to the Facebook group in the description box down below. You don't need to be a mama to join, you just need to have a love of reading. It just so happened that the 3 of us all were mamas who love to read, and so the name was born. But as I said, there are 12 books, so let's get straight in and talk about the first one, which is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. This is a YA fantasy about dragons, and this will be a reread for me, but I haven't read the final 2 books in this quartet, and Christopher Paolini has just released another book which I think is set in the same world, which I'm really keen to read, and it sort of reignited my desire to finish this quartet. So I'm going to reread the first and second and then jump straight in with the 3rd and 4th. So this is, as I said, a YA fantasy about a young boy called Eragon who discovers a dragon's egg, and the story unfolds from there, and it involves a whole world of dragons and fighting and coming of age, and it's just so good. I'm really hoping that I enjoy it as much as I did the first time I read it, because it's been a good long while, like many years, since I first read the first 2 books in this quartet. So yeah, fingers crossed that it lives up to my memory of it. There's actually a little bit of a theme in the books that I have chosen this spring, and that is most of them are continuing on with series that I've already started, because one of my main bookish goals this year is to get control of my TBR, and that involves finishing series that I have begun, and that is no different here. We've got Fire Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is the 3rd book in the Chronicles of Ixia. It's a YA fantasy series, and we follow our protagonist Elena, who in the very first book is forced to work as a food taster for the king, basically testing for poison and other nasties, and through that she discovers that she has magical abilities. She goes off to discover her history and her background, and that is basically all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil too much about the story. I have really enjoyed the world building and the setting in these books. I think they are great entry-level fantasy books. If you aren't familiar with fantasy, then I would definitely recommend these. Despite the fact that they are YA, I also enjoy the fact that they're not angsty. I often find YA books can be angsty and it drives me mad, but Yelena as a protagonist is not angsty, and I really enjoy them. I recommend them all the time to people who ask me how they should get into fantasy, what books they should start with. I would definitely recommend The Chronicles of Ixia, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where the story goes next. And again, another next book in the series, we've got City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. This is the 4th book in the Mortal Instruments Shadowhunters series, and I read the first 3 books and thought they were okay, and I've just kind of, I own them all, but I've just kind of let it fall to the side. And then with the release of the Shadowhunters series on Netflix, my interest has been reignited, shall we say, and I keep seeing Cassandra Clare releasing books set in a similar world and people really raving about them, and because I am a stickler, I have to read books in an order, so I want to get this series finished so that I can move on to her more recent work. So yeah, that means picking this one up. It's a really, again, it's YA. I honestly have more books that are not YA coming, so just stick with me, but this is YA. These books are just quick, fun reads. They're not complex. They're basically set in a world where we have downworlders like werewolves and vampires and demons living amongst humans, except we can't see them because we don't have the gift of sight, and we have shadow hunters who protect us from the more evil of these downworlders, and there's political intrigue and there's romance, and it's just fun and quick and easy and light-hearted, and I love it. There is plenty of angst, which actually does annoy me a little bit in these books, but because they're so easy to read, I'm happy to just let it go. But yeah, I want to continue on because I desperately want to get to her later books, and to do that I have to finish these. And as I said, I'm really enjoying the Netflix series. Actually, the first season was okay. I much prefer the second season. I feel like the characters and the actors have really started to come into their own, but I don't want to be spoiled for things that are coming later on, so I also want to get on and read these. So that's the next one on my list. Next I have The Wangs versus the World by Jade Chang. This is a debut novel by this author, and it is contemporary fiction about a Chinese American family who lose all their money and are forced to go on a road trip, and somehow the road trip brings this fractured family back together, and I don't know anything more about it than that. I've seen lots of people praise this book. I've heard very, very good things about it. Yeah, I'm interested to see what it's all about. I've heard very good things about this book. I've seen people give it very high praise indeed, so I do have high hopes for it. I've heard that it's quite sharp and witty, humorous, and an interesting take on kind of the road trip novel, as it were. So yeah, one that I'm very much looking forward to picking up. Then we have The Storm Sister by Lucinda Riley. This is the second book in the Seven Sisters series by Lucinda Riley. I read the first one quite a while ago, and to be honest, didn't massively enjoy it until the very last section, when it ended on such a mysterious cliffhanger that I immediately ordered the next one. But then each book is this size, which is quite off-putting, so I haven't yet picked it up. This is historical fiction, and it's about 7 sisters who were adopted, and in the first book they are brought back together when their adoptive father dies, and each book focuses on a different sister. The father basically leaves them a clue to their heritage, and they have to decide whether they want to go and investigate it or not. And if this book follows the same format as the first one, then it will flip between 2 timelines, so kind of the events leading up to the baby or the sister needing to be adopted, and then the present day as that sister goes and finds out her history. So I'm imagining that this will take the same format. So this is the second sister as she goes on her journey of self-discovery, and yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy the first book, I just felt that it was a little bit slow, and it wasn't as pacey as I had hoped that it would be. But as I said, it ended on a real cliffhanger with a real element of mystery that I want to know the answer to, and I'm hoping that I will get more clues to the answers in this book. So yeah, another one that I'm looking forward to reading. Then a book which I'm actually quite embarrassed to admit that I haven't read yet, and that is Homegoing by Youve. This has been on and off TBRs for me for the longest time, and I'm really hoping that this spring is the time when I crack it. It basically follows generations of the same family, but we begin on the Gold Coast of Africa with 2 sisters who end up living very different lives. One becomes a slave and one becomes a slave master's wife, and then we skip through the different generations and see how their beginnings have affected their present situation. I think this is a book which has such high praise. I have such high expectations, and I don't know if maybe that's the reason I haven't read it, because I'm a little bit afraid to be disappointed. I don't know, that might just be a really poor excuse for not reading this fantastic book. We shall see. But anyway, I hope that I get to it this spring, because I really want to see what all the fuss is about. Next, I'm going to talk about 2 books which I hope are going to be quite quick, easy, fun, fluffy, light-hearted reads, because they're always good to include in a TBR. The first one is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. Morgan Matson is an author that I don't know that much about. I feel like she's very, very big in the US, but not so much here in the UK, and I actually stumbled across this book accidentally in a secondhand bookstore, and I've never seen any other Morgan Matson books anywhere in a bookstore in the UK, but I recognised her name from watching other US booktubers videos, so I thought that I would pick it up. So this one is about 2 young girls. We have best friends Emily and Sloane, and Sloane disappears but leaves behind a list of 13 Sloane-inspired tasks that Wallflower Emily wouldn't normally do, and Emily seems to believe that completing this list of tasks will somehow bring Sloane back. So yeah, I thought I would give it a go. As I said, I've never read anything by Morgan Matson, I sort of get the feeling it's just going to be quite a heartwarming, light read. I don't know if that's wrong or right, but yeah, I thought that I would give it a go. Next we have Blue Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the third instalment in the Raven Cycle Quartet, and these books are basically YA paranormal romance books. They are quick, they are fun, they're a little bit silly, they're really easy reads, and I love picking them up and just flying through them when I need to switch my brain off. I read the first and second books earlier in the year and just really enjoyed them. I love the way that Maggie Stiefvater has created quite unique characters, and I'm a little bit in love with some of them. So the basic premise of this quartet is that we have Blue, a young girl who has grown up her whole life knowing that when she kisses her true love he will die, and she falls in with a group of boys from a nearby private school called the Raven Boys, and they have their own, as I said, they have their own dynamic, they have their own unique characters and personalities, and they're all kind of drawn together, and they're going on this mission to find a sleeping Welsh king. And when they find this Welsh king, he will grant a wish to the person who wakes him up, and that's kind of the basic loose premise. But yeah, they're just such fun, easy reads, and I'm really interested to see where Maggie Stiefvater takes the story next. Yeah, just perfect for when you don't really want to think too much, but you just want something a little bit enjoyable. Then we have a recent addition to my shelves. The keen-eyed among you will notice it hasn't featured in any book hauls, and that is Stolen Time by Danielle Rollins. This is a time travel book. It's historical fiction, but it's time travel. So it says in the inside flap, Seattle 1913. So we're following our protagonist Dorothy, who is being forced to wed a wealthy man so that her and her mother can have a better life, but she is desperate to escape. So on her wedding day she runs away basically into the woods. Then we have New Seattle 2077 with a young guy called Ash who is on some kind of secret time travel mission, and then suddenly Dorothy appears from 1913 and the story kind of unfolds from there. Don't read many time travel novels, often find myself a little bit baffled by time travel novels, but I'm willing to give this a go because it sounds fascinating. It says on the back, centuries tore them apart, fate will bring them together. And so this was recommended for fans of Six of Crows, and if you know me at all you will know that I absolutely love the Six of Crows duology. It's one of my all-time favourites, so I have to give this a go, even though I'm a little bit dubious and I'm a bit afraid that I'm going to be completely baffled by the whole time travel aspect, because it just feels a bit more cerebral than I maybe actually am, but we shall see. We shall see. I have high hopes. Next up we have Sold by Patricia McCormick, and this is a fiction book, but I'm picking it up as kind of my non-fiction pick because the author Patricia McCormick spent a lot of time living and researching with families and communities that she has based this book on, and I like to try and read non-fiction books when I can, but I recently read a book called Slave which really piqued my interest in this topic, so I wanted to pick this up. So this is a fictionalized version of events that really happen to young girls basically, and we follow the story of Lakshmi, who lives in Nepal with her family, and she is sold by her family, and she goes to work as a maid believing that she's going to be providing a better life for her family, but the reality is actually something much worse. And as I said, this is based on real events that happen to young children yeah, in today's world, so I am interested to pick it up. I always feel like saying I'm going to enjoy it or looking forward to it is the wrong emotion to attribute to something like this, but yeah, I'm interested to pick it up. Then really quickly, the final two books I have are Pages & Co. Tilly and the Book Wanderers by Anna James. This is a middle grade book, and it says on the inside flap, welcome to Pages & Co. Since her mother's disappearance, Tilly has found comfort in stories at Pages & Co., her grandparents' bookshop, but when her favourite characters, Anne of Green Gables and Alice from Wonderland, appear in the shop, Tilly's adventures become very real. Not only can she follow Anne and Alice into their thrilling worlds, she discovers she can book wander into any story she chooses. So I'm really interested to pick this up. Again, I've heard lots and lots of good things about this. I'm really keen for Meg and Eli to read it, so I want to read it first and see what it's all about. And the final book on my list is Gather the Daughters by Jenny Melamed. As I mentioned in my wrap up, I'm trying to slowly go through my hardback books, and this is just one that I decided to pick up. So this says, on a small isolated island, there's a community that lives by its own rules. Boys grow up knowing they will one day reign inside and outside the home, while girls know they will be married and pregnant within moments of hitting womanhood. But before that time comes, there is an island ritual that offers children an exhilarating reprieve. Every summer they are turned out onto their doorsteps to roam wild. They run, they fight, they sleep on the beach and build camps in trees. They are free. It is at the end of one of these summers, as the first frost laces the ground, that one of the younger girls witnesses something she was never supposed to see, and she returns home with the truth that could unravel their island world forever. Compulsive, chilling, yet deeply tender, Gather the Daughters explores the resilience of the human heart in the darkest of circumstances. Every summer, the girls run wild. They know it could be their last. Yeah, what more can I say about that? Just really looking forward to reading this one. There you go, they are all the books on my spring TBR. Do let me know if you have read any of the ones I've mentioned, or let me know any books that you are particularly looking forward to reading over the coming months. I always love to know. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Give me the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all soon.